Hey, everybody, welcome to Cars with Cocktails, a show where Charles and I drink and talk shit. And today,
That's really just all you need to say. It's we drink and talk shit.
we're going to talk about cars kind of this week, but we are going to talk plenty of shit. This week, we're going to be talking about technicians. And
Oh, technicians. First of all, we're having rum and coke today, coming off a holiday weekend. Not really wanting to go to the ABC store pre-Thanksgiving because that is like the mad drinking holiday. So I don't know. Some may say it's a little bit of a cop-out. I say we're being resourceful, and I'm adding lime to mine, so that makes it fancy.
I
Very
ddon't.
excited.
I wasn't informed about the lime situation.
It's optional.
Otherwise, it wasn't come prepared.
Yeah, just I don't know. Sorry if I pulled that audible on you. So my rum is the Kraken, which I'm about to release into this cup right here.
That's the one that we had in our ginger beer drink that we had.
Yeah, I don't expect it to be as good as the ginger beer because, to be honest, I really hate Coke. It is not my thing. But what I do like is that. That sounds as cool as I want it to sound. It definitely doesn't. So,
ASMR.
Yeah. While Paul makes his drink, unless he's already got it.
I've already made mine.
Okay, you're always ahead of me on that one. I like that. We're going to talk a lot about technicians, and I feel like before we do any of these, I always have to put this disclaimer that obviously this is not every technician. Obviously, it wasn't every salesperson, every parts person that we've talked about. And the good ones, if you are watching this, you know we're telling the truth. You know this is how a lot of technicians are. And I, weirdly, well, maybe not weirdly, I still consider like when someone asks me what I do, I still in my head say I'm a technician, right? Even though that hasn't been the case for a little while, at least in the official capacity. So all the shit that we're going to talk, it's true. And some of it comes from a place of love. Some of it comes because technicians do some shithead stuff.
Yeah, I am a used to be technician, but it's pretty far in the rear view at this point. I feel like it's real far in the rear view because when I went from technician to parts manager and to now, doing my own thing, I guess you could say I still keep up with it, obviously, because of all the content we create and whatever. But I don't consider myself a technician, and I don't think I could do it and make time great anymore. Some of the videos we do, I might make some okay time, but I couldn't be a real technician right out of the gate for sure anymore. So I don't even want to pretend before anybody thinks
Paul's not a technician. He's full of shit.
And that is a common misconception because on all the TikTok content I create, because I explain car stuff and while we're doing repairs on them, they think that they call me a mechanic, and I'm like, well, I am not a mechanic. And
Don't you put that on me, Ricky Bobby?
Yeah, I'm not. So technician. So let's do this. Technicians, I guess, from a general audience perspective, what the concerns around a technician is what they're gonna fuck you, right?
Right. I think the major concerns are, and it's interesting because I think the major concern oftentimes is blamed on the technician, but isn't as much of a problem that the individual technician, turning wrenches on your car causes. But yeah, you're going to get ripped off. They're going to leave your car dirty. They're going to fart in your car and it's going to smell real bad. They're not going to do a repair. They're just going to take that new part and they're going, oh, this is nice. And they're going to throw it in their toolbox. Or they're just going to upsell you shit you don't need. Did I get them all? I think there might be one more.
I think that covers most of the fear of a consumer. And I think we can probably say with confidence, we've seen all of those things happen before.
Absolutely. And I realized that by and large, like my direct experience was dealership experience. And I worked at a really good dealership. Like, I didn't realize how good I had it overall for many, many, many years. It wasn't until I sort of broke out of that little tiny, because, you know, as well as anybody that's ever worked at a dealership, when you work at a dealership, you are in this tiny, tiny, tiny little bubble of the automotive industry. Unless you have worked outside of the dealership world and then come into the dealership, like, if you kick your career off in the dealer, you know this much of a whole ocean of automotive industry. And the one I worked at was really good, and the majority of the technicians were really, really good. But that still doesn't mean I didn't see some pretty fucked up shit. And also fixed a lot of other shops' fucked up shit too, like Walmart oil changes where the car gets towed in with a screwdriver jabbed through the oil filter because they, even after jabbing a screwdriver through the oil filter to try and get leverage to turn it, they couldn't get it off, or spark plugs in the drain plug hole, or duct tape over the drain plug, or probably could go on and on for 7 hours.
Yeah. The over tightened oil filter from Johnny Oil Dick is always a good one that happens. But what's the most egregious thing that you've ever seen a tech or known of a technician that you personally know or have seen? What's the worst thing?
Yeah, good question. So I have witnessed technicians sell work. Thankfully, so there's a couple. Thankfully, this particular incident was not customer related. It was warranty related. So, like, the customer kind of got fucked, but they didn't get fucked nearly as bad as if they would have actually paid for it, right? That's the small glimmer of bullshit that I'm feeding myself to try and convince that it's not as bad. It was still pretty bad. Technician selling an oil leak repair, cleaning the oil, and then throwing the parts in the bottom of his toolbox.
Right.
There they are. New parts, just chilling. And getting paid.
Right, getting paid the full repair plus all the parts got paid for, all that stuff, whatever. Absolutely. I mean, the most egregious thing I recall ever knowing of was a recall repair on a Touareg where you had to replace the alternator harness. And
I loved those, by the way. Those were fucking gravy.
And the repair had never been done, and the harness was chucked in the garbage. And we didn't find out until years later because the repair had been done under warranty, obviously, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually it failed.
Yep.
It made it, and this is kind of the egregious thing from the customer's perspective, is they made it to another dealer, because had they not made it to another dealer, they never would have known that this happened, right? Because if a dealer goes in there, your experts, they see, they do an inspection. Of course, anybody who's familiar with Touareg is going to look at that and say, shit, this is the old harness on here. This is not the updated one that should have gone with the recall. The recall must not have been done. Then they pull it up, boop, 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 beep. And they see, like, oh, fuck, this dealer code did it on this date.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, it had never been done. And the gentleman who in question was paid for it, clearly, and obviously terrible sin to the customer. Now, that is probably one of the worst ones that I recall that comes to memory that I've seen done in a shop that I know of. Stuff like what you're talking about, I think, is similar, but not nearly as bad as something that's a recall that is like, hey, we're recalling this shit because it's a known fucking problem. Fix it.
Yeah. Especially that particular one. Two reasons why that shit should have just been fixed. One, when that recall first came out, that shit paid really well. Really well.
It was like 8 hours or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was 8, and then they ended up bumping it down to like 3.7 hours or something like that. But the stupid technician was so dumb that he didn't realize, apparently, that battery cable has a little sticker with a fucking date code on it that all you have to do is go, oh, this is from long before the recall was done, dumbass. Yeah, I'm sure that. And the biggest issue I have with that, one, like, you're committing warranty fraud, which is a problem. You're causing a potential issue for your dealership, which is a problem. Oftentimes when that happens, the customer is out of that warranty or recall period. Now you went from getting paid, 3.5 hours, the customer paying 0 and happy about it, to a customer paying 6 hours or 5 hours of labor, plus probably a $300 battery cable that now they have to pay for, which, I mean, they shouldn't have to pay for that. That should have been handled. And the updated cable didn't have nearly the problem that the original one did. But yeah, that's pretty messed up, dude. And shit like that, like, look, and I feel like I've said this 100 times. I feel like I've said this with every one of the positions we picked on in the dealership. The automotive industry has earned its reputation. I like to think that overall, the majority of technicians and advisors and parts people and salespeople are just good people trying to make a living. They care about what the hell they're doing. They want to do a good job. But even if I'm right and the majority of them are, there's still a shitload of scumbags out there that will sell you brakes when you have 7 millimeters of pad, right? They will sell you a timing belt without looking at it just because it's due, not realizing that customer's really awesome and just had done it actually, this perfect example. I got a comment on a YouTube video today saying how flat rate is for crooks, right? Only crooks work on flat rate. This whole big tirade this guy went on about flat rate. And I understand where his sentiment is coming from. And like, flat rate oftentimes does not necessarily encourage the most honorable of choices, we'll say, right? It can definitely encourage unnecessary
and management concern for sure.
The system is not the problem. The management of the system is the problem. And he's like, yeah, I replaced tie rods on my Jetta, and then I went to get an alignment and they said my tie rods were all messed up and they were brand new. I'm like, well, like, that's not flat rate, bro. That's that shop being shitheads and trying to sell you something. Or, I mean, there's always 3 sides to that story, right? Side A,
or
side B, and the truth.
Or he fucks some shit up. Yeah.
The boot's all destroyed because he did a half-assed job on it. Right. Obviously something that I'll never know. Another couple of things I've seen, and I'm trying to remember. I got into, like, I had to send a technician home over this. And I can't for the life of me remember exactly what it was, but he was trying to sell something to a customer. And I'm overhearing him tell the advisor, and I have a pretty good bullshit radar when it comes to car repairs, especially you work at a dealer, you work on 1, maybe 2 brands, you start to just know the common things that are wrong with their cars, right? Volkswagen intake manifolds are going to fail. Water pumps are going to fail. Window regulators are going to fail, right? Door lock modules are going to fail. So when you get a repair that's not in that like normal scope,
you can sometimes shit doesn't feel right.
It didn't feel right at all.
You hear it and it just doesn't sound right.
Exactly. So he's describing to the advisor what's going on, and I'm just like overhearing. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So me being the dickhead that I am, I'm like, hey, did you do this, right? Did you test this? Whatever it was. He's like, well, no. I'm like, well, did you get paid diagnostic? Yes. I'm like, what did you do for your diagnostic? I did pulled faults and checked a fuse. I'm like, okay, someone paid you $100, an hour of diagnostic time. You spent 7 minutes. Like, do this next test. Well, it's not going to, a bullshit excuse is what the tech gave me. I'm like, no, man, like, that's not how it works. What you're saying makes no sense. You could be right, but what you're saying doesn't make sense. Well, I know it's this. I'm like, but you don't have to like guess because you're guessing. You didn't do the test, right? Whatever the test was, you didn't do the test. So you're guessing. You don't know. Well, I'm pretty sure. I'm like, so you don't know. And I pushed this guy. I thought he was going to hit me. I pushed him so hard. What it boiled down to was, charging a customer full boat diagnostic, which I'm 100% for. I think for the most part, if you bring your car in with something wrong with it, unless it's something painfully obvious, you should pay a diagnostic fee. I don't think technicians should work for free. I think they should be paid based on what they know, what they're able to do, and the work that they do on their car, combination of all those things, right? So I am all for, yeah, a customer pays diagnostic fee, which is not a popular thing among customers, but whatever. You're not going to convince me otherwise for the most part. Like, you basically took that customer's $100, shoved it in your pocket, fucking hooked the scan tool up, pulled a fault and said, it needs this. What you did is no different than them going to the local parts place and having the person, the cashier behind the counter, plug the fucking computer in and say you need an oxygen sensor or a mass airflow sensor.
Yeah, you're Johnny Dickface from AutoZone that you always make fun of about how he prints out the sheet that from AutoZone that has all the fault codes listed in common whatever repairs for that thing. And frankly, should be fucking embarrassed. Not number one, because you're fucking the customer over, but number two, you don't represent what you do very well. And here's, I think something that I've learned as I've aged, and as you can see in my facial hair, my age
I don't want to hear about that shit. Look at this.
Starting the show. But doesn't matter what profession you're in, and I've realized this about very high level professions, including doctors, is that lots of people don't give a shit about sucking at their job because they fucking suck at life. And that's it. They don't give a shit. They don't care about being good or excellent or anything. They just want to show up, get paid, go home, and get fucked up. And that's all they give a shit about. And so
some say they may start a podcast talking shit about technicians and
possible.
drinking. Who knows, though?
I'm not going to say whether that's true or not. So
allegedly,
what I've found is that there's certainly a lot of technicians, and I've known some in my career, who actually can't even explain to you how basic systems in cars work because they don't actually understand it. All of their, especially I think in dealerships, this is probably even more prevalent, although I don't know, maybe it's everywhere just because obviously with lack of exposure, but because they're so used to the same brand, you see the patterns, you see the failures, you have tech line to help you, guided fault finding kind of holds your hand, whatever. You don't actually understand, and they couldn't even explain to you how a turbo works,
Right.
And it's like, if you can't explain how a turbo works, how the fuck are you diagnosing drivability concerns on a turbo engine?
Well, I mean, I think back to my dealership career, and I was absolutely in no way, shape, or form like the best technician in the world, but I felt like I was a pretty good technician. The majority of what I did was pull the fault, run the test because it was under warranty, because I did a lot of warranty work. And a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times it ended up being a pattern failure that the car came in. You kind of probably knew it was one of about 5 things. When you saw the fault, you're like, oh, okay. You ran one test and you confirmed that that's what was wrong. And you were right 90% of the time, maybe 80% of the time. And that's not to say that I still didn't deserve to get paid that diagnostic time, because like I put my work in on the first few, right? I shouldn't be penalized for knowing more than the guy.
Kicked, yeah.
But I also shouldn't be the technician that pulls a car in, plugs the scan tool in, checks the fault, looks at it and goes, oh, it's this, then sits on his fucking toolbox for the other 45 minutes of that hour diagnostic time because it has a coolant temperature sensor fault on a Mark IV with a black coolant temperature sensor, which you could just look at it. You don't even need to pull the fault.
Right.
You could you start the car, the temp gauge doesn't move. You go under the hood and go, oh, that's a coolant temp sensor. Or if it's not that, that's something that's going to get replaced anyway.
By the way, there's no way at this day and age, as ancient as Mark IVs are now, that you're going to find a black coolant sensor.
Dude, you think that, but I promise you, there are some still out there.
Could be.
Maybe a bold promise,
Yeah.
but I bet you there's some out there.
Yeah, I would say us as a shop, we tend to err, and I actually had a conversation with the guys at the shop because we tend to err way too far on the side of over diagnosing things in terms of we get our hour and then we get an hour 20 in and we still haven't even stopped to say like, hey, we need more diag.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, we got it. Like if we're close to the edge, let's go over the edge, take care of the customer, make sure they're getting their money's worth in terms of what they're paying us to do. But when it's appropriate, we need to get more diag time.
Yeah. And I think the problem there, I'm also all for more diagnostic time when it's appropriate, right? And this is where like the gray area gets muddy, because if I'm a really good technician and in an hour I can diagnose that car correctly, great on me, right? If I'm a shit technician, or let's not even call them a technician and give them the honor of that, if I'm a parts changer and in an hour I can't diagnose a bad fuse, the customer shouldn't be punished because I suck, but I shouldn't be punished as a technician for being really good. So it gets a little muddy. I was always like, look, you're paying for an hour. At 1 hour and 1 minute, if I'm like in a test or I'm on my way,
you're gonna finish. Right.
I'm not gonna stop and say I need more diagnostic time. But at an hour 10, if I'm at a point where I have an A decision or a B decision,
right, that's when you get more diag.
Exactly. Both of those two things involve, let's say, one is taking a dash out, one is taking a door apart. Now it's time to say, all right, Mr. Customer. And again, like I've said this before, the biggest problem in the world is lack of proper communication.
Poor communication, yeah.
I go to the customer and say, look, here's all the tests that I've ran. Here's all the results that I've gotten. This is what I think is wrong with it. However, to prove that, I need to either do this or I need to do this. If I do this, it's going to be this many dollars. If I do this, it's going to be this many dollars. My gut says to do A, and that's a little more expensive, but it's probably going to be what I like. That's probably where the issue is. I, as a technician, have to justify that, right? If I just say, I don't fucking know what's wrong with it, I need more time, I'm a shitbag technician, and probably in the next hour, I'm not going to figure it out unless I stumble upon it, unless I call tech line, unless, Steve next door in the bay across the hall or whatever comes over and says, hey, dipshit, you're missing a fuse. That's why your convertible top doesn't work. Oh, you've spent 3 days trying to figure this car out? Wow, you suck. Funny enough, had that exact scenario happen. I actually don't remember if it was a convertible top or not, but I remember this story so well because it was one of those like shining moments in my own narcissistic assholeness that I got to just beam with and beam and gloat in my own awesomeness as I saw it. So technician across the shop is working on this Beetle for days, right? I think it was the car wouldn't start, I think is what it was, because I remember him pushing it around the shop. And this technician he was an asshole. And the shop I worked in, like, you had to be a super prick to get to the point where nobody would help you. Like, everybody pretty much, if you needed help or you were stuck, they would help you as best they could. So this technician, real prick, nobody gives a shit about him. He got himself in that scenario over many, many years of just being a dickhead to everybody. He won't ask for help because he knows nobody's going to help him. So I'm watching him like push the car around the shop, push it back, work on something else, which I'm okay with, push it back in a stall, go around and round on the phone with tech line, doing all the things, right? Days go by. Finally, he comes over to me with his tail between his legs, which I would have helped him if he would have asked, but I'm not going to offer my help because I'm kind of an asshole like that. And
because fuck him. That's
basically what it was. He got himself in that situation. Again, I can't stress enough. You had to be a complete shit bag in order to get yourself in this station at the shop I worked at. So he's like, hey man, I got this problem, blah, blah, blah. This is what it is. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, what have you done? In like 3 days, keep in mind, 3 days. He tells me like 4 tests that he's ran. And it involves like, I checked the fuses, I ran faults, I checked some wiring. I think it's good. And I looked for technical service bulletins. I'm like, well, bro, that's like 20 minutes worth of work. So, okay. So, show me what you did. So I have him show me again. It's like 10 more minutes of time. He shows me all the things he did. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm like, noodle it in my head and have him show me the scan. And I look down and I pull the fuse cover off and I look down and I immediately see the problem. I look down, I'm like, hey, did you check the fuses? He's like, yeah. I'm like, they're all good, right? Like, yeah, they're all good. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, hey, do me a favor, like run over to the wiring diagram. Cause he also didn't know how to read wiring diagrams or shit. And it sounds like I'm really beating up on this technician. This is a 6-year guy, right? This is not a dude that's his 3rd week. This is a 6-year technician, maybe 5 years. So I send him off on like a remedial errand just to go away. And I walk over to the fuse bin. I grab a new fuse. I plug it in to the port that was missing a fuse and fire the car up. And he just comes over with his head hanging down. I'm like, I thought you said you checked the fuses. He's like, I did. I'm like, you were missing one. How did you know that? I'm like, well,
you can see two jumpers on the fucking location.
I'm like, you see all these other ones that only have one fucking pin? He's like, yeah. I'm like, look, and I pulled the fuse back out. This shit's got 2. Someone was in there. Oh, okay. Lord knows what they charge this customer. I think at that point it was like they probably just charged the customer the hour because that's like
that's a hard one to explain. Although I will say, and this is something that obviously in defense of most people, most technicians, is that when you go down the road of a car that someone else has been fucking with, knowing exactly what the fuck they've done can become a wild goose chase.
You'll never know. You'll never know what they did because the boyfriend checked the fuses by pulling all of them out and looking at them and then putting them all back in, right? I've had that exact experience. So yeah, I get it. Look, I say this story and I like to, really pridefully and narcissistically gloat about that story just because it's kind of a fun story and the technician was that technician. But dude, I've got my ass kicked by a fuse.
Oh God,
flat out.
All of us
my
have.
Ass kicked.
All of us have. I have as well. I also have B6 Passat when they came out new. I was a tech. There was a car in single wire mode that eventually, because an engineer came out from Germany and we ripped the car apart. But during the time of ripping the car apart to find the single wire mode issue, CAN bus single wire mode for people who are not familiar at home, was still not going to make sense, but
here's a even less vague.
Here's a little more clarity. That's not really going to help you much. Then eventually the car didn't start anymore because we've been tearing the fucking car to pieces, and it was eventually found that we had a fuse that was misplaced somewhere along the way. We did find the single wire mode problem. It was a passenger rear window motor that was causing a single wire mode in the CAN bus system. But that was after I tore the literal car to fucking pieces with a German. I don't know. Have you ever worked with a German?
I have. I have to say I didn't enjoy the majority of it. However, this was also on the B6 Passat when it first came out, and we were doing some kind of engine diagnostic, and I was complaining about that stupid ass engine cover, which
FSI.
Yeah. So here, imagine this. Imagine you have this 4-cylinder turbocharged engine with all this really cool, great technology in it. You have this cover that covers the whole top of the engine and the intake manifold. And, it looks cool when you pop the hood. You don't see any of the engine bits. And it also, weirdly enough, has the engine air filter built into it. It also has the mass airflow sensor built into it. So The car can't run without it, but you
you
can't
need to
do any diagnosis with it. So this fucking engineer comes in and he's like, all right, so here's what we're going to do. And I go through my whole spiel on what I've done. I'm like, yeah, it's tricky because like you got to like bungee the engine
Lift it
cover up to the hood.
And it was not flex. It couldn't really flex very well because there's no space really.
And this was before they were all fucking broken too. So, right, they were all still new and in good shape. And so I'm like just kind of bitching about this. He's like, well, you just don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to diagnose this. I'm like,
good luck,
all right,
buddy.
bro, cool. You can go fuck yourself. Of course, I didn't say this. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, like maybe, I don't know. I'm just a stupid fucking technician. What do I know? And by the end of our diagnosis, I like hear him like, man, this is really hard to diagnose that way. I'm like, fuck you, bro. Dick face.
Yes. Okay. So you got into a little bit, but I think this is kind of the direction I felt like it was going when we first started talking about this topic, is technician flaws in terms of people. So I feel like you touched on a little bit with your gentleman from your old dealer who everybody hated, but I think technicians, there is certainly a subset of technicians who are I don't know, prima donnas. They have fucking attitude problems. They are a nightmare as a human being to deal with, and certainly nobody should talk to them, and nobody should like them either.
Yeah, I don't quite understand. It's weird. I had this conversation with a tool company today, and as I say these things, like I've been this technician too, right? I've had moments in my career where I was this way. It's like a technician wants to do no work, be treated like royalty, and get paid accordingly, but not do anything, right? So I heard this quote many years ago, so I can't attribute to where I heard it, but it essentially was, the amount of pay you get is directly proportionate to the problem, the difficulty of the problem that you're solving. So if the problem that you're solving is changing the oil on someone's car, you don't deserve, if that's your thing, right? If that's what you do, that is not $100,000 a year job. It's just not. Now,
not even close.
Not even probably half that, right?
Half that. All right. Are you crazy? 50 grand a year to change oil?
If I liked changing oil, I would say sign me up, but I don't care for that. So yeah, but it's really weird. And we can talk about all like the problems that technicians face and like how management and the system and the manufacturers, like they really seem to do a lot to fuck technicians.
There's a lot of squeezing going on, and I don't want to, here's what I say. I don't want to undermine the pressure that a tech's under to perform for their paycheck, first of all. But also just in general. With that said, unfortunately, I think that being a technician attracts the kind of human beings who are incapable of dealing with A, problems, and B, well, I should say A, problems in an adult manner, and B, humans in a way that an adult should deal with a human.
I actually find that to be the majority of just people, period. But yeah, it's really strange that's the case, because the technician today is not the grease monkey of the 60s, right? And even then, like, I think the technician was far undervalued for what they truly had to know to be successful. But today it's very much not like that. Like, if you're a good technician, you're smart as shit and you know a lot of stuff, and you're smart up here. You can work with your hands. You have a gut instinct. You're probably good financially, or you're probably not very successful, or somebody's fucking you and you just don't know it yet. So it's weird that you get so many technicians that are frankly just pussies. Like, they'll talk like they got a big dick, right? They'll fucking puff their chest and bang that drum like they're a real fucking man, but they'll whine like a little bitch because they have to do something that they don't really want to do. Well, first of all, fuckhead, you don't have to do that shit. You could go, right? You can go somewhere else and not do this, or you can do your fucking job, get that shit done, and move. The amount of I'm feeling my blood pressure going up. Hold on a second. Let me solve that problem.
The amount of technicians that
cry and whine and just straight up bitch and will drag their feet because they seen a ticket up front that says check engine light or dash rattle, they'll work so fucking hard to avoid that shit that it's mind-blowing. And they've avoided that, so they haven't done any work. And most technicians don't get paid if they're not doing work.
basically all in the U.S. almost exclusively they're not getting paid, right?
Which is a problem, and that's not how it should be overall. But another topic for another day or later. They will work so fucking hard to not do the work. Then they'll bitch that they didn't make any fucking money because their advisor's an asshole. And what their advisor did, because their advisor needs to get the fucking work done, that technician that's like, yeah, I don't really want to do it, but fuck it, it's work, I'll get it done, fixes that dash rattle. Who the hell do you think's going to get the fucking gravy work that's coming in next, dickface? It's the technician that actually fixes the fucking car and doesn't drag their dick, being a little bitch, not wanting to fucking do work, crying and whining the whole damn time. I don't want to do a dash rattle. Bro, I don't want to do a damn dash rattle either. But you know what? I like making a paycheck. And if that's what I got to do to make a paycheck, that's what I'm going to do. Or I'm going to lock my fucking toolbox and I'm going to roll my happy ass somewhere that doesn't do dash rattles. Why is this so hard? Oh, wow. Hold on. Oh, wow. Complaining they don't make enough money. They get treated like shit. Management's out to screw them. All while expecting to be treated like fucking royalty and behaving like a fucking toddler.
You got the behaving like a toddler part dead on. There's a lot of flavors, and this one you're choosing super salty. This one's extra salty.
Yeah. Look, I see this shit all the time. I ride this fucking gray area, which is not fair, that I agree with a lot of the gripes that technicians have. The pay relative to what a technician needs to walk in the door, right? Because you can't just walk in the door. I don't have a pen nearby. You can't just walk in the door with a pen like a service advisor, like a warranty clerk, like a parts person, like a salesman. You have to have fucking tools to do your job, right? You are the most highly trained person in that building as a technician. Oftentimes, you're not paid accordingly. Oftentimes, you got to do shit that you probably shouldn't have to do. And you probably, if you're good anyway, make way less money than you should. 100% agree. Will go to my grave feeling that way. Hopefully no time soon. However, if you pull your head out of your ass for a moment and look around at your coworkers, you'll find that probably 25% of them are barely smart enough to pick up a fucking wrench and turn it. They don't deserve to be treated like royalty and put on this pedestal like the God's gift to fucking the world and cars. They are labor. That's what they are. They can take a bolt off and put it back on. I'm sorry. You don't deserve the highest of high-level pay because you can operate one of these things.
What is that?
It's a cylinder head bolt from a Chevy S10.
Oh, that's neat.
I got a VR6 one here too. Here's a VR6 one.
Yes. No, I mean, I think there's certainly guys who are physically capable of doing a lot of things that mentally are not capable. And I think most importantly, I think technicians often lack self-awareness.
100%. Well, yes.
In terms of where they fit in, not just within whatever dealership or whatever, but more importantly, where they fit in within the scope of all technicians. Like I don't know that, like, hey, a guy who's probably ranked in the bottom 30% of technicians doesn't think like, oh, I'm dumber than 70% of technicians.
No, they feel like they're in the top 1%, which is a huge problem. Check your ego, bro. You're not that good. I don't feel like I was that good. Like, I don't consider myself in the top 10%, 20%, probably in the top 50%, maybe.
I certainly don't consider myself to be some sort of elite technician ever. And I maybe understand diag side of stuff, but certainly was not a technician for very long.
Yeah, you know, and I have so much guilt about like being so hard on technicians and just like slaying them like I just did. However, I really want those technicians that are the caliber of technician that deserve to make the highest of high level pay, that are severely underpaid, that are very much not properly respected. I want all those things for you, right? I feel like I work really hard to present the technician in the light that is like, hey, this dude, this chick is a fucking all-star. They'll fix your shit. They deserve that top level $100,000, $150,000 a year pay, right? But that's a small percent. The majority of y'all, I hate to say this, you're not as good as you think you are. You don't deserve the top level pay. You're not solving the top level problems. You're solving average level problems. You deserve average level pay. If you don't like that, I'm sorry. That's just the truth. Do something about it. Get better. Get training. Work harder. I don't know what the answer is for you. Figure something else out.
To me, I feel like the biggest issue with a lot of techs is that thing, they most often seem to not be striving for anything. And sometimes maybe they're not capable of being the top tier, but I also think oftentimes they just don't really care. And again, it kind of goes back to that what I said earlier with the whole idea of lots of people do lots of jobs at all different levels of respect. You know, a doctor who hasn't learned anything in the past 2 years new basically doesn't know dick, because everything changes all the time in medicine. Not much different than cars in the sense that, which I don't want to get off on another tangent, which fucking pisses me off, that people treat diagnosing illness as a blank check with a never-ending money pit that you're willing to spend. But if your car is broken, it's fucking $99, and that's all I want to fucking spend. And it's like, what the fuck is happening right now? I went to the doctor 7 times. He prescribed me different things every time. He's just blasting with like a fucking C-level technician, just writing that fucking script. Bam, fucking script cannon. That's what we'll call it.
Bam, bam,
bam. Doctor script cannon.
Well, look, it's like this, right? If you have 100% of technicians, they're all not the best. You have the bottom 10%, you have the top 10%, and you have the 80% in the middle. Obviously, the middle number is the highest amount of technicians. So the majority of technicians do fall in that average category. And it's so weird to me that so many technicians have such a big ego. And I've been that technician that's like, I can fucking fix anything. Here's my big Johnny Big Dick, right? And I found that is very quickly a self-correcting problem. If you're doing anything meaningful, you are
saying you're Johnny Big Dick. Is that what you're saying?
What's the word? Oh, the word is you're humbled. Ding, very, very quickly by the universe, because the universe is like, nah, dude, you ain't that good.
Mm-hmm. By kicking your ass. Yeah.
Yeah, you get that car that comes around and eats your damn lunch. But just the interesting part is like, it's cool you can do brakes really fast. It's cool you can do a timing belt really fast. Like, I think that's great. But you're not really solving any problem. Doing a timing belt fast is a parts changer thing. I like doing timing belts fast. That pays really, really well. But that doesn't make you an A-level technician. That makes you a B-level technician, maybe
B plus, maybe?
B-ish. I mean,
B-ish.
most time belts aren't
Well,
that hard.
Yeah. For me personally, I would never call myself a good tech in terms of hours. I never made a lot of money in being a tech, partially because I wasn't a tech for a super long time, but also because I never really found gravy to be very interesting. I barely got it because I got completely fucked.
That's what happens when you're the new guy.
Yeah, well, that's a story for a whole other day. But I also just found diagnosing cars way more interesting. I think it sucks dick for making money, but it also is way more challenging and interesting as a thing to do. So being a young technician, for me, I would rather immerse myself in that and kind of take it in the ass than just do gravy all day, which by the way wasn't an option for me. But
that was a self-correcting problem. So
yeah,
no
hypothetically, if it was an option, I would have liked it less.
Well, look, for me, it was a balance. Like, yes, I want to do gravy work because it pays so well. And doing that gravy work allowed me to make a paycheck. And then when the hard work came in, I wasn't scared to do it because I knew like I already had my paycheck made, or I knew I'd make it up at the end of the week. Oftentimes those technicians that are willing to just dive in and do that really hard work aren't compensated in the way they should be, which, I've kind of beat that one to death. But man, I want technicians to be treated how I think they should be treated, right? But for that to happen, y'all got to pick your shit up and tighten up your game. And you know what? Sometimes you're going to have to do shit that you don't want to do. Let me tell you that if you have a job or run a business or basically are alive, you're probably going to find that at some point throughout your day, your week, your month, you're going to do some shit you don't want to do. You know what I want to do? I don't want to have a bunch of stupid meetings. You know what else I don't want to do? I don't want to fucking do taxes. I don't want to pay taxes either, but that's another story. There's a lot of shit that I don't want to do. But how do we get around that? We do the shit that we don't want to do and we get it done so we can move on to the shit that we really do want to do. And if you're a technician and you really want to do gravy work, you get the shit work done as fast and accurate as you can. So now you can go do that gravy work. And guess what? This is going to come as a surprise. Guess what? You don't have to complain about it the whole time. No one cares that you don't want to do it. You either do it or you don't. That's the key to success.
I like how close you were when you said that. I believe you're 100% correct. Because
I feel like I'm gonna get really close and flare my nostrils and basically talk out of my nose, which I didn't know was a thing people do.
Yeah, certainly complaining about problems doesn't help you at all, and that's a common theme: is motherfucking everything while you're doing it. That way, you get yourself really wound up, and you're very inaccurate. That way, you're in a super bad headspace. You can't diagnose the car properly. And you get super pissed, which absolutely does not drag the job on longer and, doesn't make it worse at all.
No, there's a big sarcasm font that, in case you couldn't pick up on that, that Paul was using there. But yeah, like, I think that being a technician can be a really great career. I think you can make a good ass living. I think you can have a very fulfilling career, both in the sense of like, feeling accomplished for fixing cars and feeling accomplished that you're truly helping people, right? Oftentimes, I think one of the big problems where technicians lose their way is that a lot of what you can do can be done by like anybody, right? Putting an air filter in is
It's fucking easy.
it's mindless work, right? So
A monkey could literally do it.
replacing an air filter does not make you a hero. Finding that weird problem or finding something that is going to break while you're doing that basic ass service on a customer's car so that they're not stuck with a tow bill or a really high end repair, that shit does make you a hero. There is a customer that is relying on that vehicle that you are fixing for well, not everything, but so much in their life. Getting the kids to school, getting to work, getting to granny to doctor's appointments, going to get groceries, right? Uber, whatever it is. You get so worked up about the car or how you're getting fucked out of 1/10. Quit bitching about it. I get it. Fight for your tenths where it makes sense. Otherwise, just go back to work. You lose sight of the fact that like that customer needs the car and you want to motherfuck this to death. Well, that's not helping. Be the hero for the customer. You're working on a system that pays you by efficiency, speed, and the work you do. Efficiency and speed are kind of the same thing, but not really, but kind of, but not really. Get the job done. Nobody needs a fucking dissertation about how you hate doing this job. Just do it. Get it done. Go back to the next job and the next job. You're going to find yourself being very satisfied, very fulfilled, and making a good ass living. And if you're not, move on to a different industry. Technicians sell themselves so short of bitching and whining about how fucked the auto industry is, yet you're 20 years in and you've never thought I could go work on forklifts and, well, honestly, probably make way more money and have way less stress. I think that's an amazing field to be in, honest, for what it's worth. But why the fuck are you still being miserable? Go do something else.
I completely agree. I mean, to me, the one thing that I thought of while you were going on that
while you were tirading
was to the most important advice I think I could give anybody ever in life is do not complain about things you can't change. It's fucking irrelevant. It's a waste of your energy. It's a waste of your time. You should never do that. Now, try to make an impact where you can. I don't disagree with that. I think it's completely within your right to do so. If you have a disagreement about something that you should try to address it. But once you are in a place where you cannot do anything else, stop fucking complaining about it. Get it out of your head. Because either if it's a deal breaker for your job, let's say you're a tech, there's a thing that happens, it's a deal breaker for you. Cool. Go do something else. Go to a different place, but understand that being a technician almost everywhere is the same.
Yeah, it's like a different flavor of shit, the sandwich that you're gonna have.
Well, the reality is that it depends on who you work for. If the person's a good person or a fucking asshole, that determines probably your experience. Now, if you're working for a good person and you're not having a great time, is it really them? Is it?
It's funny you said, like, don't complain about shit you have no control over. And I totally agree. I also, while you said that, thought, you really shouldn't complain about shit that you have complete control over either, because dipshit, you have the complete control over that. And you can actually do, I don't want to say something, but you could do everything about it. If it's that bad and you've looked at yourself in the mirror and you've made that list of things about your job that you really like, because even shitty jobs have some, like, there's some stuff that's okay, except that one job that I had where I worked for, so it was like a subsidiary of CompUSA. So fat chance of ever getting a sponsored, sponsored by CompUSA. It was like Dartech computers on their business to business side. I had an office job where you had to scan your badge to go to the fucking bathroom. So that job sucked. But other than that, I mean, the people were cool. So I guess that was the good thing.
I feel like a lot of corporate jobs you have to scan your badge to go take a shit.
All you technicians that tell people like you, I have a razor knife in my hand now. I just
Oh,
appear with
we're getting
random
real
shit.
wild.
Yeah, it's about to get fucking gangster up in here.
Someone's gonna get cut up in this motherfucker.
Sidetrack. This is why I have this in my hand. So this is a safety knife that I got a package and it was in the box. So sorry to whoever this belongs to, but check this out. So like, you know, it's got the little handle. Cool. You can lock it, which is neat. But watch, when you cut the box, it like pushes the blade back, right? Then what happens when you let out of the box? It retracts. So yeah.
Oh wow, that's neat.
Kind of cool. Safety. I'm gonna put it down before I hurt myself. And now I've completely lost all train of what I was saying. It was probably stupid anyway. But yeah, like if you can change something about it though, like fucking change it. Like it might be you. It might be you need your attitude readjusted and your boss isn't really that big of a dick. And your coworkers really don't suck that bad. And your service advisor, well, they're probably stupid. So I won't say that they're not that stupid, but
to me,
but they're probably
the rule
not that bad.
is if everybody around you is the asshole, you're the asshole. That's a very age-old term, but it's always true. Because when you see people who look around and they're constantly motherfucking everything and everybody's an asshole, whatever, it's like, no. You're the asshole.
Yeah.
You.
I don't understand why someone would work in. Oh, here's where I was going with this. So for all you technicians that are like, go to school, get an office job, get something better, don't be a technician, that's a waste of money. What they're saying may be very accurate. And right, the future of the automotive technician is, it's a little weird right now. Have you ever fucking worked an office job? It's not for everybody.
It is soul crushing for a lot of people.
Hated it. If you've ever had a meeting about meetings and you thought, wow, I would rather just do anything, but like violently, I'd rather, there's nothing I'd rather do less than this right now. And like, think of whatever that thing is, right? That you know would be very unpleasant and perhaps it would be extremely painful or I don't know, fill in your own blanks, be creative. Here's your moment to be creative.
There's certainly a lot, and I get this actually pretty often as people who work corporate jobs who despise their job because it's soul crushing and they have, 7 bosses and Susie Q is trying to ruin their life because of office politics and blah, 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 whatever. But they make way too much money doing what they do to have a job in an industry like ours where they don't have any experience and don't really bring much to the table. And it's like, listen, you might be a smart person who's capable and whatever, but like, let's be honest, like you get paid way too much money to work a job. And that is the downside of corporations. But that's a sidetrack. Let's get something prescriptive as we're approaching probably the end here. I think we've touched on the tech perspective. From a consumer's perspective, how do you think most consumers can find somebody they can trust as a tech to work on their car? Let's say not a shop, but a tech within a shop, and probably dealers would be the most likely.
I feel like just relying on a good shop to have all good technicians is very foolish. I feel like the stories we've both told are proof of that. So look, this is very simple. It is not very easy. And you're going to have to do some things that you probably don't really want to do. And I can promise you the technician on the other end of it really doesn't want to do either. But if you want to be able to trust someone, this is the work that you're going to have to put in, right? I remember very vividly this customer that came in and, I don't know what the conversation was with the advisor when she first walked in, but I get a page over the intercom and later find out why the advisor paged me over anyone else that, was on my team. This lady, she's a girl. This girl had questions about oil filters on her common rail TDI. She's like, hey, how many manufacturers are there of oil filters for my TDI? I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's 2 different styles. What are we getting at? Like, she's like, well, I'm looking for a technician and I have some questions for you. I'm like, okay, this sounds fun. I'm up for the challenge. I interviewed pretty well, despite being a little rough around the edges, and, you know, being dashingly handsome doesn't hurt either. But yeah, so she's like, well, what kind of oil filter, what manufacturer oil filter, where's the oil filter you guys use made at? I'm like, dude, I have no idea. Like, I opened the box and I swapped the filter and I put it in the car. I don't know. She's like, okay. I'm like, I'll find out though. She's like, awesome. Can you do that? Yeah, no problem. So I go find, she wanted like the ones made in France or whatever it was. Weird shit. So basically what this woman did was interview me to be her technician. And that sounds corny as shit, doesn't it? Like, that sounds ridiculous. However, what a brilliant move by this woman, because what she found was a technician that gave a shit enough about her
to not
and
blow
her
her
car
off.
to not go, I don't know, you dumb woman. It's a filter of oil. Who cares who makes it? To actually put, I don't know, 4 minutes into finding out the answer. Like, literally, I had to open 2 boxes of oil filters to look at them. That was the extent of the work I had to do. I could have told this woman she needed a new flinger flanger valve, and it was $3,000, and she would have said, does it really need that? And if I said yes, she would have wrote that check, because she trusted me. If you're not willing as a customer to put in 10 minutes of work to talk to a technician, feel them out, get a vibe, and ask them some basic questions, how can you expect that every person you're going to encounter is going to be trustworthy, right? Just like you said earlier, Paul, the majority of people don't give a shit about what they do. They're just there punching the clock. You want to work hard to find that technician that does care about you, that does care about your car. And that one lady that interviewed me, which was, I found out like she came off very weird to the advisor, and the advisor didn't want to deal with it. So he sent her to me, which, I mean, great customer. She'd still be my customer today if I was at the dealership, and I made, like, she did all the services. So it was awesome. She was one of many customers that way, that like a very tiny micro investment from a customer's standpoint to getting to know a technician is huge. That also works the other way for you technicians. A very tiny micro investment in a customer means a ton to a customer, showing that like you're not just a brash asshole, and like you legit care about their car and them and their family. Like, you don't have to invite them to fucking Thanksgiving. Weirdly, just saying, hey, Mrs. Jones, how are you today, is probably more than they've ever gotten in their whole entire life from some dude turning wrenches or some chick turning wrenches. And it means a lot to people. Customers want to interact with their technician, the person working on their car, right? Not their secretary taking the order, service advisors. I love y'all service advisors that are good, by the way. But they want to talk to that technician. They want to have their person on the inside, right? They want to have their guy. Be their guy. Small investments, both sides. That's all it takes. And then you don't have to worry. Like, my whole thing with my customers was, from day one, starting at the dealership, was I want a bank of customers that if something goes wrong with their car, their check engine light pops on, I don't want them to worry anything about it. The only thing I want them to think is, when can Charles look at it? And maybe secondary to that, boy, I sure hope this doesn't cost me a lot of money. And that's it. Not what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? How much is it going to cost? Who's going to fix it? How am I going to afford this? Like, I got you. And that was my goal. And it's one of the reasons why I was maybe not the best technician, but I was pretty successful at what I did.
Interesting. So a couple of things, I had different thoughts while you were going down that road. Most notably, when you're talking about the filters coming from France, was cone heads. And we come from France.
Paul, you know there's like 4 people that are going to get that joke. It's the same as the time to make the donuts joke, dude.
Oh, it's fucking ancient. Anyway, but the next one, I actually had a different perspective. I like that idea Although I don't know that most people are A, going to feel comfortable, and B, going to feel properly equipped to ask the questions to not feel like a fucking idiot. Because it kind of requires you to look a little foolish because you're going to ask questions you really 100% don't even know if make any sense. But more importantly, I think the interesting thing is what I would advise is probably go around the dealership and talk to a variety of people and ask them what technician do they generally deal with. So go to sales, and what you're going to need to do in sales is find a salesperson who's been there for more than about 60 days, which is often challenging.
Probably not happening.
It's probably not going to fucking happen. But if you have a sales guy, like, hey, who's the sales guy who's been here the longest? Ask somebody in sales that. Point to him. And then when you talk to old Johnny, longtime sales dick,
we'll call him Alan.
Alan
the salesman.
Alan. We'll call him Alan. Alan Gidney. We'll call him
Alan Bidney.
Yeah, Alan.
Fictional character Alan Bidney.
We'll call him Alan Bidney. And you say, "Hey, Alan Bidney, who is the technician who you talk to when you need help with things?" And you get an answer. Then you can go into the service drive and repeat said process. Hey, who's the service advisor who's been here the longest? Hey, who do you talk to when you need help? Now, they're going to have to give you a person because they have to answer the fucking question.
Yep.
And they're only going to give you the person they actually deal with because they know they're not going to give a random name of just some random person. So you're going to get to the person who's legitimately the best person to deal with. So anyway, yes, to sum up our total experience, I would say I think we've covered that some technicians are great. Many technicians are assholes. We've given some good advice on how to find the best technician and oftentimes the nicest and most empathetic one. Yeah, that's an episode, I would say.